So there still has to be a human, kind of UI UX layer. And then from an architecture perspective, you need to be built in such a way that you can now perform actions on behalf of your customer.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Franchise. As always, I am your host, Paul Ehlinger, sitting here in a snowy Cincinnati, but we've got our guest, Roland Ligtenberg, here from Housecall Pro, sitting in front of a vineyard in California. So, Roland, you've clearly figured things out, but thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It was great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those who may or may not know you, who the heck are you, and how did you get to where you are today with Housecall Pro?
Sure. My name is Roland Ligtenberg, like you said, and I'm one of the co-founders of Housecall Pro, and we help home service businesses run their businesses. We do everything from scheduling, dispatching, invoice, parts of marketing. We also offer different solutions on the payroll side, accounting side, bookkeeping side, phone taking side. There's like all the things to think about, everything that a home service kind of a entrepreneur maybe doesn't want to do,
Sure.
but they just happen to get into it because they didn't know they were starting a business. They just
And
happen
then
to be
one day
really
they
good at
look up and they're like,
trade.
oh, shit, I do need to do accounting now.
That's right. Yeah, I got to keep track of my money. I got to collect my money too. And so, we started Housecall Pro about 13 years ago now, in 2013, and we launched it in 2015, and we've been off to the races. And we have over 50,000 home service companies using us,
That's
and
awesome.
with hundreds of thousands of technicians. I don't know, over 250,000, I'm sure now.
Yeah.
And they've done over 100 million jobs on our platform. So 1 in 3 homes, one of our pros has serviced.
That is awesome.
of all zip codes. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that is a wild stat. I'm curious, like I love a platform like this because presumably you guys started somewhere. You were some almost like single solution app, was it like it's scheduling or something? Where did you guys start? And then my second favorite question is, when did you guys commit to calling yourself the operating system because you felt like you had enough features across the entire stack to do so?
Yeah, that's funny. Both two questions. So the first version of Housecall Pro was a list of jobs and a way to accept credit card payment. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
There was no calendar, actually, in fact.
Oh, interesting.
There was no calendar. Not an optical one, but it was a list. And then we started calling ourselves the operating system day one.
Okay. I love that.
Because you just got to grow into it and you got to believe.
Yep.
Even when you're not quite there yet, and if you can't call your own baby ugly, then you've waited too long to ship it. So for us, it wasn't pretty day one, but we kept improving, and we ship, I don't know, probably 8 times, 10 times a day now. And so, but even back in the day, it was multiple times. So it's just a really quick iteration, listening to our customers, feedback loop, build what they want, do better, and gotten here.
Yeah, I love that, and I fully subscribe to it. We called ourselves the marketing hub for multi-location brands when we launched, and safe to say we weren't encompassing of all of marketing. And same on the process. I mean, I didn't really intend to have this conversation around the development process, but we're feeling the same thing. Like, it took us like 2 years to launch 3 solutions. We're about to launch 3 more solutions in the next 2 months, and it is exponential. We're big stands of Claude Code. We've got a ton of automations built around how we're building that way. Are you guys running a similar stack there where it's like the ability to get a PR out nowadays is exponentially faster?
Yeah, you can do like 10x PRs, and all your job now is just reviewing PRs.
Reviewing is the harder part because now it's like everything's jammed up in 50 PRs. You're stuck there.
Like, you got to get through it all, and hope you get no conflicts. But I mean, similarly, we're just doing it at a little bit of a different scale. So probably slower and less nimble, but still on the AI forefront in terms of, how quickly we're able to build things, right? And the good thing is we've got components for all the pieces. So, you load up a couple of repos and you could be off to the races like day one. And it looks like you've been, shipping code in our monolith forever. It works pretty good.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I'm curious, like when you think about, because I was just looking through kind of the solution set on your website, and it's impressive, right? It is genuinely an operating system. How do you think about Housecall Pro evolving, over the next decade, right? Like, obviously, you're going to keep building out feature sets to take parts of the business, but, does it ever stop being feature expansion and grow outside of maybe what it currently looks like?
Yeah, I think in general, if the way AI is going now, it's really going from like a system of record to also a system of action. So you
Yeah,
see a lot of native AI companies that are like, oh, we're system of actions, but they're not the system of record. So you can't
yeah,
quite do all of the things, and
yeah,
or you have to partner or integrate with the things. And so,
yeah.
the reverse for us is true, where it's like, Housecall Pro was built to allow humans to do things faster,
Hmm.
but if you could think, I mean, 10 years from now, it's not going to be humans doing the things,
No, it's
but
going to be
it's
all
still
agentic flow. Yeah,
going to be all flows, but it has to be built on top of something and somewhere and needs to
yeah,
follow, something that if a human needs to jump into, they can, because
yeah,
stuff goes wrong, it breaks or whatever, right? So there still has to be a human, kind of UI UX layer. And then from a architecture perspective, you need to be built in such a way that you can now perform actions on behalf of your customer. So,
yeah.
Housecall Pro, we think a lot about how can our AI team members do things proactively, not reactively, proactively,
Hmm.
because they know your business really well. And then I think where the big differentiation is when the cost to build something goes to zero or low,
Yeah,
compared to how much we put into it, then
sure.
what's really the differentiation? But the big, I would say, thing that makes us unique is just the sheer amount of data that we have. And so, you
Something
know,
about servicing 1 in 3 households presumably creates a data distribution
there's
model
there's
that's
some data
impressive.
there, right? And so,
Yeah,
if you're a new plumber and you set up shop in Phoenix, Arizona, and you want to know,
yeah,
are you pricing correctly?
yeah,
Our coaching eye can tell you like, hey, Paul, man, you're undercharging. You should be doubling your prices, and you would have never known that. And
yeah,
so, but that's where the value of all the data kind of comes in at an aggregate level, because anyone
yeah.
could go build an invoicing app. Anyone could
Yeah,
go build a whatever.
literally, somebody who doesn't even know they stumble upon Lovable could end up with an invoicing app in an hour, right?
There you go. And so they end
Yeah,
up with it. And so really what the differentiator is just the sheer amount of the data.
yeah,
And as you're able to leverage it and build up AI's context
yeah,
across so many different vectors, that's
yeah,
when you can build really amazing things that, you know, any indie developer or plumber that happened to stumble into Lovable or like whatever, you can build. It's like it'll be like the pen and paper again. It's like cool, an
correct. Yeah,
invoicing app, pen and paper. You're just
yep,
using your own invoicing app, cool. But is it
yep.
like infused with all your AI team members that know everything, not just about your business, but everything about every
Everybody
business?
else's business.
And
Yeah,
because of that, you're doing things in the right way or not. So I think in general, we see a lot of franchises too that they think about this. Franchises is unique in the sense that they're operating at some sort of scale because they're using the learnings across the entire franchise to be able to accelerate an individual franchise owner that just happened to buy into it, right? You're buying
100%.
into
Yeah,
the SOPs, you've got the playbooks, you maybe have a centralized marketing center, maybe you have a centralized dispatch, maybe you have a centralized call center, maybe you have whatever it is, but like you're
yeah,
leveraging economies of scale because you have buying power, right? You have all these things.
yeah,
But those are very, like, think about just that. Maybe it's 10 concepts, 50, 100. That still is very small compared to 100 million jobs.
yeah,
That's like real data. And so anyways, franchises are thinking about this in the same way, which is why we see a lot of
yeah,
franchises come to Housecall Pro, because they're also trying to build their systems. And so
yep,
inside of Housecall Pro, you can, easy copy paste, right? You've got the
yeah,
golden template. Boom, apply this template across all. Poof. SOP
yep,
is the same. Great. Checklist the same. Tag structure the same. Reports the same. And then you can
yeah.
roll something out way quicker than if you were to be like, all right, guys, here's 10 licenses. Good luck. And
Right.
then
Good luck. Go
everyone's
do the
doing
thing.
different stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think we think about it the exact same way. And I think it was something we committed to invest in upfront as well, which was sure, we could have just API'd into like all these other, vertical marketing providers, right? An email solution, this solution,
Mhm.
that solution. And as we were thinking about it, my thought is like, I see a world where every vertical software starts cutting data access, right? Because they realize this is my unique differentiator. And so for us, like we wanted to own the rails of every marketing channel. And that
Mhm.
would then allow us to kind of go full autonomous. I'm curious, as you guys are doing this and as you guys are working in the service industry, like I think user adoption is interesting, right? Because
Mhm.
I know you're living in a world that's out here. Your average user is probably a ChatGPT user, like that's their comfort level with AI, if I had to guess. What are you
Mhm.
thinking about of getting the user into a place where they do put more trust into like, hey, the agent's going to handle this. You don't even have to think about it. It's done for you already. How do you think about that kind of user experience evolving over the next few years here?
Yeah, first step is to be able to make whatever the agent or the AI is doing verifiable.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? right? So you can kind of see like, how did they do their homework? I was always the kid that would show up, at class with their homework done with all the answers on the sheet, and I'd always get like,
You
D's
get
and
points
C's.
off because there's no like mid-level equations going
I
down it.
never showed my work. But look, like if you want to make sure that the student knows what they're doing, that they didn't just like cheat or whatever it is, like you got to have them show their work. Same thing with AI, have them show their work. So I think in the short run, having a really good way to allow a pro to not just be comfortable with the output, but also see the thought and reasoning,
the activity
behind
log,
the models. And you see this now in a lot of the modern LLMs, is you can down click on the caret so you can see what they're thinking and doing. So you can verify their work, make sure it's working correctly, or at least the way you kind of sort of intend. And so I think in the short term, that's just one piece. And then in the long term, it's like, is the things that it's saying correct? Because I did them and I listened to them and it worked. And so it's just, you have to go full circle on it, right? So you have to do a full circle. And so once you do a full circle and you're like, oh, I got this thing, let me try it, I don't know. And then you try it and you adjust your prices, you double your prices. Oh my God, my conversion rate hasn't changed. Wow. Like, how did that happen? Oh, okay. Well, this thing must know what it's doing. Cool. What's the next thing I'll suggest? And then listen to and actually do. So I think it's all part of just a big loop. And I think ultimately, it's going to take a little bit of time. But it will happen, and it's already happening in the same way that at a certain point, like you have to let your apprentice electrician, do some of the hard work.
They got to wire up at the box at some point.
And at a certain point, you have to be like, all right, I trust that they did it because I'm about to close up that wall. But in the beginning, what do? You test and you verify. Let me go test the things. Let me go verify. Let me make sure it works. And after a while, you're like, I'm not going to test each GFCI. Like they got it. They got it. So I think, look, some of it's just generic human behavior and psychology that has to transpire, which is what affects the long term. In the short term, show your work. And so I think that's one where really quickly, if an AI says, the commission to pay Paul is going to be $1,000 for all the water heaters he sold in the month of January. Well, having a little button that you can click on that shows the report that it built via those APIs, so they can edit the report if they want to, but they can see where the number comes from and all the 10 jobs that summed up times 10% to come up with that number. You're like, okay, that's right. And after a while, you're going to stop clicking that button because you're like, whatever, it gets it right. I
don't need to click the button anymore.
You don't hit the button anymore. Then you don't even need the button anymore over time, right?
Right. Yeah, and I love that conversation because I think right now, like so much of generative AI is focused around like the chat interface, right? How do you think about that? Because like what you're describing right there is essentially iterating away UI because it doesn't need to exist anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think like what does this boil down to in your opinion? Like what's the simplest implementation of Housecall Pro? Is it a chat interface where they say something and then the interface generates what they actually need right in front of them real time? Where do you think it ends up for you guys?
Yeah, I think like ultimately it devolves back to like what are they doing previous to all this technologies? They would have a helper with them. They'd be like, Paul, make sure I don't forget my tools. Paul, can you just invoice that customer? Paul, can you write down that line item? Hey, Paul, could you tell me in the notes, can you just make sure that next time we show up that we wear our booties? Because Mary's like very particular about booties in the house or whatever. Like, so think about what would an assistant or a sidekick or helper, traditionally do? And what would that mode of communication be? Voice. And then I would say for things that are visual and you leave an invoice behind, sure, there's going to be some UI that's going to draw up what the final result is and the output, and then you're going to verify, Paul, is this looking the way you envisioned it? Yeah, sure, totally. So I think it's a mixture. It's multimodal in the way that it presents itself, both in the way that it intakes its data and then the way that it, it presents that data piece. But I think ultimately it's going to go back to like, how do humans like to communicate and how do they resolve things as fast as they can, being what is human about it? Because all of the like UI and UX elements of any design are made to try to make it simpler for humans. But if you don't need those pieces, then what does it look like, right? But I think it's just standard communication. And it's nothing like mind blowing other than the fact that it just seems to work. It knows all of the things. It stores it somewhere in the cloud. And when I need data and things, it just works. And by the way, now I can get back to doing what I do best, which is talk to homeowners,
like the service
fixing complicated systems, crawling the attics, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's clippy with voice. We've really made it a long way since 95.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I'm always curious about this too. Like when it comes to voice, do you guys think about personality within your AI teammate? Like, is that something you guys consider where, does it matter how the AI is communicating back? The tone, the words they're choosing to use by user. Like, does that matter to you guys? Do you think about that at all?
I don't know if I had an accent, would it change the way you perceived me? Maybe if I had an English accent, you'd think I'd maybe be more intelligent or something, or like more
I
worldly.
grew up in the country, so I've experienced what that feels like.
Yeah, and in reverse too, right?
Right,
Um,
100%.
yeah, so I think like it's just one of those things where anything that can help people get used to something new and removes the friction, I think is ultimately good, but
Yeah,
long term, not necessary. So I
yeah,
think you always got to evaluate things over multiple horizons and be willing to change your opinion if
yeah,
presented with better facts. And we don't know what we don't know, but what I said seems to make sense, and that's kind of our position as well. Our pros are no nonsense. Give me the straight fact, no fluff. Don't
hmm
use fancy words. Give me exactly what I want and say in the least amount of words possible. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Go with that. Now, if you want to have a cool Australian accent, female, super energetic and all this kind of stuff, and you want to use that as entertainment, it's kind of a different use of the
sure,
tool. Maybe, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think if that makes me want to use the tool and learn that it's powerful, I don't know. I guess that's net good. So,
yeah,
can you enable that? We don't do that out of the box, but it could be something
yeah,
we do. I just think ultimately, this is a tool, and fancy, like you'll hear a lot of pros that are like, bring the right tool to the right job.
yeah,
Don't go bring some crazy tool that you don't need that's got a bazillion things when you could have just brought a screwdriver.
yeah,
So don't do that. So I
yeah.
think we take the same philosophy, and I think it takes just getting to know your customers and who they are.
Yeah, I'm curious. So, like, I mean, I see the vision. Like, you guys have all the rails, you have all the data to essentially operate these businesses agentically. Kind of without human intervention here in a few years. Like, uh, robotics are also evolving. Open world vision models are evolving. In 2035, does Housecall Pro partner with Tesla and release the first,
Optimist enabled. Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you've got the brain of a service business owner in Housecall Pro today, you just need the body to implement. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, what's unique is that body is either divine or evolution. Who knows what it is, but like it sure is pretty perfect for what it
Yeah,
does from an energy consumption perspective, from the way that we're able to move and the things that we can and can't do. And then I
yeah.
think there's things that robotics can be really good at. So as a human, do I want to go lift a compressor by myself off the back of the truck? Probably not.
Probably not.
Right.
Yeah,
But am I going to trust one of those Optimus robots crawling up in the crawl space in my attic and just dropping through drywall left and right, because it just missed by like 1 millimeter? I
yeah,
don't know. Will it ever be as good? Maybe yes, maybe no. But I
yeah,
will say the human body is perfectly engineered to do many, many tasks. And
yeah,
so I think same thing there. It's the right tool for the right job. I think
yeah,
having a helper that can go lift the heavy things and bring things back and forth from the truck so I can be focused on doing the hard stuff
yeah,
probably is going to be something that's going to happen.
yeah.
Is it going to be, instead of Optimus and its individual robot, will it be more of an exoskeleton? I don't know. Most likely, yes. Right.
Sure.
Some version of it, which exists today too, that helps
Yeah,
with lifting and those things for warehouse workers. So I think, some version of that in the future will definitely be there. I think just ultimately, no one can take away the creative problem
yeah,
solving of a human that's seen a lot of things, which is why when things go wrong in your house, you want a skilled tradesperson that's been there, that
yeah,
happens to know that our house is a 1950s farmhouse. And when that was built, the foundations were built in a certain way in this area. And
yeah.
because of that, then they should look for this kind of a crack in this location because the terroir and the earth is clay or something, right? I don't
The
know, maybe
terroir.
but it's
Yeah,
something, right? And
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah,
could that exist within a context window of an AI? Yeah, maybe. But I
yeah,
think humans are incredibly good at using intuition and
yeah,
massive degrees of context to come up with creative solutions. So I think, there's, for our space, I always say is like AI is coming for the sitting jobs, so me and your jobs, and
yeah.
not coming for standing jobs, not for a long time.
Yeah, my only imagination is just like an AI lens, Jarvis, right? Where I look
Sure.
at the wall, it's got the X-ray, I can cut the thing. I'm
Sure.
enabled like with the AI, I can run the business out of my glasses and do the business through the glasses.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really cool form factor, and a lot of people have been trying to work on that still, and there's still
Yeah.
nothing great there. But I've got my Meta Ray-Bans, and those are pretty interesting, but you don't have the overlay. And then I've got my Apple Vision Pros, and those have the overlay, but they're too bulky. So I think
Yeah, but not the form factor. Yeah.
it's just the iterations. They're just all going to change, and I think like ultimately, it's the combo of the two things that's gonna win. It's not going to be one or the other, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a combo.
Yeah, no, this was not the point of this entire episode, but it was just too interesting of a path not to go down it. So thank you for entertaining me. I think about this a lot as well. Like with what you guys are building, I think we're thinking the similar way, specifically within franchising. I think having full operating system technology makes it easier to grow a franchise because you don't need an A player to get A performance right away. You can kind of bring them in sooner than that. Excuse me. Is that something that you guys think about that as well? Like when you're working with a franchise brand, it's like, hey, how can we just level up everybody by making sure that this system is running? It's going to run well regardless of kind of the player. We can help the player level themselves up as we go.
Yeah, I think, look, it's a lot of playing a game of just bowling, really, because what you're doing is you're setting up bumper lanes. And for people that need the bumper lanes, they're there by default. But people can choose to throw a ball in another lane that doesn't help, or they can remove the bumpers. But I think with a franchise, what's really nice is like you can set up the entire bowling alley, and you can decide who gets bumper lanes and who doesn't. And so you can, independent of a user's skill or capabilities, or whatever, you can make sure that most of the time they're going to get a spare. Maybe a strike every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
But at least they're not going to go strike out and bowl under a 40 or something crazy. So, anyways, I think that, from a franchising perspective, they should absolutely be looking at all kinds of systems, marketing, operating systems, whatever, that can help systematize the processes so that, you can have your power users and your not so power users produce output that's going to benefit, everybody, because when the franchise wins, the franchisor wins, right? Royalties go up, all the things. So, so I think ultimately it's a must. And those that aren't, partaking are, they'll still probably be able to sell the franchises, but like long term, you're probably going to cut into the LTV of what you're hoping to build.
Yeah. Was franchising something you guys initially started at, or was it like one-off, two guys in a truck, like just Service Pro in general, and then you realized a franchise play was like a larger enterprise option that was still within the market? Like when did you guys kind of find that entry point for you as you were building Housecall Pro?
Probably in the last couple of years, really, because I think, when we shipped Housecall Pro, it was mobile only. So it was optimized. It was
optimized for the guy running his business out of a truck, showing up at houses.
But the reason why we've grown really fast is because if you can make it really easy for the person out in the field who shouldn't be on the phone to run the business, then everything else works really well.
Yeah.
And so traditional franchise systems have made it really easy for the office person who has all the time in the world. They don't have a faulty electrical circuit that's zapping people, or nothing. There's no water damage. There's leaking anywhere or whatever. So it's kind of a misnomer is not the right word. It's easier for people that have time, big screens, right, to be able to do things. But then how are you still going to manage the guys out in the field? And how are you going to make sure they're clocking in and clocking out? How do you make sure that they're documenting the work that they're doing when it's difficult? So I think we definitely had an advantage by building mobile first, mobile only. And as we matured, we built a web version. And as we built the web version, that then allowed us to then go sell to more complex organizations where you do need a web version. And then you have, parent, child, grandchild. Right. And so then you have grandparent. And so you have multiple layers on top of that, because some franchises have multiple layers, so you have to build a system. You can't like doing that out of the gate. It's really difficult. So, I think I wouldn't advise that unless that's really the target that you're going for. And if you happen to do enterprise, lower velocity sales, but you do get many more with each one individual sale. So I think,
you get some great net revenue retention.
You need a little bit of all, you need a little bit of each thing.
Yeah, I think it's something we learned super fast, because we did not intend to launch into multi-location when we first launched our platform. And once we got in there, it was like, oh, wow. So it's a bigger deal, slower deal at the enterprise level. But at the end of the day, hear me out. An electrician doesn't want to do organic social media on a laptop. I can tell you that much. And that is something we very quickly learned, and I'd say are actively working on. Where it's like, and it's kind of awesome because to your point, it really forces you to think first principle. Like, what does the person at the end of the day literally need to do? And it's probably three things. It's three tasks, right? And like, can they do that from their phone with 2 clicks? And if you can do that, especially nowadays, building it takes longer because there's more infrastructure at play, but building a web interface for a marketer sitting at their desk all day is substantially easier than building that on a mobile phone for somebody not trying to get electrocuted.
Yeah, I tell people like it's way easier to go build something on the web because you don't have to think about what you're designing because there's room for everything. But on mobile, you really have to be thoughtful in all the things that you actually remove, right? Or don't build.
100%. Yeah.
Very careful decisions there. But I will say when it comes to social media and just marketing in general, but particularly in grabbing content, is that the easiest source of content in the home services space is always going to be the job itself.
Correct. Yeah. Before and after. Show up, take a picture. Before you leave, take a picture.
And after, do a little video, talk about what you did, those things. And the reason why they work well is because it allows others to put themselves in your shoes. And when you're marketing, that's what you're trying to accomplish because you're trying to make someone want something that they don't have.
Yep. Right? And it's really hard to do that from a corporate office.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, right? Like, there's only so much stock photography that's going to feel fake. It's just not going to work, right? You're just going to get
stock photography doesn't even matter anymore with AI. Like it's just not even a thing.
Yeah, so use a cool tool like Weavy or FreePic or one of those ones, and go build out these like meta image generators, and you can do some cool stuff there. But even that, users are going to be able to tell what's fake and not, no matter how many times you upscale a picture and add pores and all those kind of prompts, which is cool and all. But I think, over time, humans will still be able to suss that out versus real work done out in the field.
I think specifically in franchising, it's so local. Like they know the house style. They know what the temperature was that day. They know exactly what was happening. And it's just not worth it. Before we wrap up, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, what's it like being in Mensa?
Like nothing. Like I don't know.
I randomly scrolled all the way down your LinkedIn and saw it there, so I've got to ask the question.
Yeah. No.
You guys don't have like quarterly secret meetups,
Yeah, like meetups and things like that, But cool discussions on groups and on Facebook groups and stuff like that. But other than that, I think being able to expand your network and talking with like-minded people, there's always going to be value to that. So I think whatever your group is, that helps. And if you've got something in common, whether it's, the Mensa thing or whether it's racing cars or tasting wine, whatever it happens to be, that gives you the ability to, increase your collisions with interesting people. I think that's always a great thing.
Yeah. I love that. And in wrapping up, Roland, like, not what I thought this conversation would be, but I thought it was fascinating. So, like, I really appreciate it. I think, genuinely, I fully agree with how you guys are building, why you're building the way you are. And I think it's the right way. And I think it's going to come for franchising hot and heavy. And I think we're seeing it. I think it's going to be really disruptive. I see it to be a optimal time to be an emerging franchise because there's going to be legacy brands that don't leverage some of these technologies, and you will be able to leapfrog them. I think it's a generational opportunity. And so thank you for diving into it and kind of, talking some details and shop with us on it.
Yeah, definitely. And look, if you're a franchise and, you're maybe more mature and you're like, oh, we don't want to miss the boat. It's worth revisiting your platforms, your strategy, those types of things. There are other legacy bigger players, even than Housecall Pro in the space. But you don't have to pay that much, to be able to get what you want. And so we see a lot of those switching to us, and the biggest names that are out there. Awesome. So take a look at that, and look, if you're just getting into the space and you're like, I want to build a franchise, now is a great time, because what a lot of operators are looking for, when they're looking at franchises, like, are they using a modern tech stack? What have they built and put together? Or am I just buying something that's got like paper handbooks and I get a 3-ring binder and I do like a quarterly like owners get together and we sit around, at an Elks Lodge, and just powwow. So I think, there's truth in what you said. And so, there's always going to be opportunity. And so don't be afraid to revisit your current strategies. If you're new to the game, you now have a really cool window of opportunity at this
100%.
point in time, this next year, 2, 3 years, where you can do something really cool. So if you're thinking about it, now's the time to jump in, get the right tools, and work with businesses that are always listening to customer feedback and looking to improve on that. Because if you do that, you'll make the right picks.
Yeah. It's also the cheapest it's ever going to be. That's kind of my big thing too, is like, once you guys have 2 years of data of how your agentic agents are driving revenue, it's going to get more expensive. That's just how the game works.
That's true. That's true. Just improve revenue, right?
Yeah. To close, Roland, where can the audience find you online? Where can they learn more about Housecall Pro? Where should they go?
Yeah, clearly you can just Google Housecall Pro. If you, since we're on a podcast, you can just go to housecallpro.com/podcast deal. If you thought anything in the conversation was interesting, you're either industry or on the side, and you want to text me, you can always reach me at 858-215-1512. And that's not my agent. That's just my quote phone number here.
I was going to say, we've got an LLM attached to that.
There we go. It's just my quote. So, it comes in here, and we'll say that feel free to reach out. Not enough people do, but it's the people that do that are surprised and end up booking anyways. So it's fun being on the show, Paul, and I wish you guys the best of luck as well with what you're building, because I think so many franchises, I see it all the time, like the biggest lever they can pull is that revenue one, and the hardest one is finding a repeatable, scalable marketing engine. And if you can solve that problem for them, they should be looking for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Roland, thank you again for being on the show. For everybody else, I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I do. This was a fun one, honestly, diving into this stuff. I don't get to talk like deep into AI and tech with some of the folks that come on here. So really appreciate that. And again, thanks for listening to the show, guys. And I hope you enjoyed it and come for the next one. We'll talk to y'all later.